Good afternoon, everybody. We will get started in just one moment. We're going to let about another moment to allow some more people to join us. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the first SME membership program of the year. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. I can assure you we are ready to engage you and hopefully provide you very valuable content. So today's program is Building Your Future, SME Education Foundation Scholarship Guide. And we will talk about everything you need to know for the scholarship application process. So before we get started, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. All attendees are muted today to minimize background noise. Therefore, we do encourage you to use the chat feature throughout today's program to ask any questions of Philip about the scholarship process, and we will get to as many of your questions as possible. Today's event is being recorded and a replay will be posted on SME Connect. For any post-event questions, please feel free to email SME membership at membership@sme.org. Today, we are joined by my colleague, Philip Hang, Senior Scholarship Officer, part of the SME Education Foundation. And I am going to ask Philip to please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. So my name is Philip Hang. I'm Senior Scholarship Officer with the SME Education Foundation. So a little bit of a quick background about myself. I have a decade-plus experience in higher education. Pleased to be working with the folks at SME and SME Education Foundation to administer a scholarship program. But prior to my time at SME, I worked, like I said, over a dozen plus years in higher education in various leadership roles in admissions and financial aid. So happy to be in SME to help the students in this future pipeline of manufacturing and engineering talent. So can we go next slide, please? So what we'll cover today, we'll give a very, very, very quick overview of the SME Education Foundation. We'll go through the scholarship application and criteria for the SME Education Foundation scholarship application, as well as talk about the requirements. And then we'll also do a very quick rundown and provide a demonstration of the scholarship application, so you can get an idea of what to expect from a scholarship application. And then we'll have a Q&A session and highlight some of the upcoming SME membership events. So the next slide, please. So the SME Education Foundation. So the SME Education Foundation is the philanthropic arm of SME, and we're here to inspire, prepare, and support the next generation of manufacturing and engineering talent. Next slide. And we do this through our three pillars: to inspire, prepare, and support. So I'll kind of quickly cover two of them, and then we'll focus the rest of this presentation on what you guys came here for scholarship information. But under our Inspire pillar is our student summits. So the student summits are our hands-on events that we have for students that kind of give them the introduction into the world of manufacturing. They're usually in conjunction with our larger SME trade shows that we do throughout the country, where we invite students in high school, middle school, in those areas to attend student summits, get a keynote speaker, visit student-friendly exhibitors throughout to kind of get that first taste into the world of manufacturing. Our SME Prime program is our high school programming that is throughout the United States, that provides training and equipment to schools to prepare the students to eventually either be ready for the workforce right as they complete their high school programming, or obviously pursue higher education in the areas of manufacturing and engineering. So that leads to our last pillar, which we'll focus on, which is the scholarship program. Next slide, please. So the SME Education Foundation Scholarship Program has been around for over 40 plus years. We annually award nearly $1 million each and every year to students that are interested in the fields of manufacturing, engineering, or any STEM technical field that supports the manufacturing industry. Our award sizes range from $2,500 all the way up to $20,000. We administer various endowed scholarships, various corporate scholarships as well. And what's great about our scholarship application is students do not need to worry about any of that. They just have to apply with the one application to be considered for all available scholarships that we have. So students aren't picking and choosing on the application. I want to apply to this scholarship. I want to apply to this scholarship. No, they just have that, got to have that interest and passion for manufacturing. Do the one application. And that one application opens their door to all scholarships that they could potentially be eligible for. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so here are the overarching criteria for our scholarship program. Students must be graduating high school senior or a current college student. They must be degree seeking. So students must be pursuing an associate's, bachelor's, and a little bit more limited, but we also have graduate scholarships as well. Like I said, in manufacturing or other technical fields that support manufacturing. Students must be a citizen or permanent resident of the US or Canada, or be possessing a student visa in US or Canada, but they must be attending schools in the US or Canada in order to be eligible for a scholarship. So our scholarship program is specific to students residing in the US or Canada and planning to go to school in the US or Canada. Scholarship is open to full or part-time students and a minimum of a 2.0 GPA to be considered. So again, these are the overarching criteria for our scholarship program. Like I said, it does get a little bit more competitive as we get more applications in with students with higher GPAs, et cetera, whatnot. But I wouldn't look at that as a discouraging point. If you meet these criteria, and you have an interest in manufacturing, interested in manufacturing engineering, or any technical, like I said, any of these technical fields that support manufacturing, um, we want to hear from you. Highly encourage you to apply for our scholarship opportunities. Okay, next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the application requirements. So the application has been open since November 1st. The deadline is right around the corner here. It's going to creep up pretty quick to us, February 1st. So students must complete their application between now and February 1st. Like I said, it's just one application that students complete to be considered for all available scholarships. They do the scholarships. Everything is done online at our website, smeeth.org/scholarships. In addition, students would also need to submit their transcript, their STEM courses, a listing of the STEM courses that they've taken, and then provide the contact information for 2 letters of recommendation. So after all that is completed, that is a submitted scholarship application. And then the references, so I will mention this as well. So don't wait to the last minute. So students must have a complete application by February 1st. And the references, however, if you're writing a letter of recommendation for a student, references have until February 8th. So they have an extra week to complete, but it's better to get the application started and complete it now and reach out to your references so they have more than the February 1st to February 8th timeline to complete. So students must complete their application by February 1st, but references have until February 8th to complete, but the entire application on the student's end must be completed by February 1st. Okay, next slide. So here's the timeline of the application. Like I said, November 1st through February 1st is the application period. All applications must be submitted by February 1st on the student's end. We go through a comprehensive review process between February through April. So during this time, we're relying on hundreds of volunteer reviewers who are in industry, who are STEM educators who are donating their time to help us evaluate and review each and every scholarship application that we receive. After the review period has been completed, students will then receive notification between May and June if they received a scholarship or not. And then by July and August, the funds are then going to the financial aid offices. And then we repeat this fund cycle again right afterwards. So to kind of sum things up here, November 1st through February 1st is when the application period is each and every single year. And if student receives a scholarship, should expect to receive the funding for the scholarship awards between July and August. Next slide. Okay, so before I get into application demonstration, there's a few things that kind of came to my mind before I share it that I want to reiterate. I know a lot of you are joining this call are obviously familiar with who SME is, our SME members, but I want to make sure that you're aware that our scholarship application does not require students to be SME members to apply to our scholarship program. So if you know of any students who are engineers or in manufacturing, but they're not members of SME, that's okay. Share our scholarship information. We encourage them to apply to our scholarship program. And actually, if they receive a scholarship, we'll get a complimentary SME membership. So next, we're going to transition into the application demonstration. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll kind of go through a quick walkthrough of the application. Okay, I have my screen shared here. I think you guys can all see it. So the first step when students visit that smeeth.org application is to log in or create an account. After you create the account, you get into our welcome screen. So this is what the welcome screen looks like for students. So there's a lot of information in here, so make sure you take the time. We're not going to read and look at everything here, but there's a lot of information when students log in that covers various different things that could be applicable to them on the application. So make sure they look it over and review. But when we scroll all the way to the bottom, this is where you would start the application. Oh, thank you for confirming. Okay, good. So anyways, when we get to the bottom part here, uh, this is where you would then start your scholarship application. So you would click the continue applications button. When we do that, we get into what the application looks like. So this is an example, and as you can see, I'll kind of slowly scroll through this. We're asking for the demographic information again. Are you a high school senior or current college student? Have you participated in any of these engineering programs? Your GPA. A lot of highlights here, but what is your intended school for next fall? Are you planning on going to the same school? So entering that information into your application is all what you will see in this step one here, right? So making sure that we get all of this entered in. What kind of program are you in? Graduate, undergrad, the number of college credit hours, what is your major? So you'll see there's a drop-down list when you click this of different majors that you could select. If you don't see your major on there and you're in a technical field that supports manufacturing, that's okay. You can select the other option as long as you can explain how your major relates to manufacturing. You could still potentially be eligible and considered for scholarships. So there's the major section, the degree that they expect, anticipated graduation date. If you have any affiliation with SME, whether it be a parent, grandparent, or if you're a student member of SME, this is where you enter that information. Again, it's not required to complete the application to be a SME member, but that's where the questions come in. And then we get into some short answer questions. Again, to really drill down into your interest in manufacturing for us to review as part of the application. So there's 3 short answer questions. So please explain your educational career objective as it relates to manufacturing. What is your motivation in pursuing a career in manufacturing? And then if awarded, how will an SME Education Foundation scholarship enable you to pursue a career in manufacturing? So again, we're not looking for a huge essay, and you can't do that because it's 150 words or less for each of these sections, but really kind of drilling down to your interest in manufacturing. So that's what these short answers are designed for. Next, we have the section for what we call scores, activities, and that STEM course listing that I mentioned. So this is an area where you can enter and indicate if you've taken any extracurricular activities, have you had any internships, Do you have any work experience? Are you a part of any professional memberships? Maybe you're a SME member. This is where you can reiterate that, or any other kind of professional organizations. So if you click yes to any of these options, you'll have the option, the ability to list how many of these activities you've taken in, and then list what they are. And then we get into how many STEM courses have you taken, right? So this is where you would list all the STEM courses that you've taken. And when I mean STEM courses, I'm talking about all of your science classes, technology classes, engineering classes, your math classes. That's what you would list here. They don't necessarily have to be like a STEM 101 kind of course or whatnot. We're looking for those in each of those different categories. So list all the different STEM courses that you've taken. After you submit that and have that completed, I would say that's the most challenging part of the application, or at least the first stage of it at that stage. So that will, after you complete that, we then get into the next step of the application, which is for you to enter in your reference details. So students must submit at least two uh, references, a contact information for two references as part of their application. These references, should be, folks that are like your, oh, here are the categories right here. A co-op employer, robotics instructor, advisor, mentor, project lead the way teacher, instructor. If they're a professor or teacher in general, if you have a SME student chapter advisor, or a prime instructor. Um, at minimum, one of your references must be from a professor or teacher in order to proceed in your application. So in this section, this is where you would enter in that information. And after you enter in your reference name and their email, our system will do a lot of the communication, but it's important on your end, after you've indicated them in your application, to reach out to your references to let them know that, hey, I used you as a reference. Be on the lookout for communication from the SME Education Foundation to complete your portion. After you enter your reference details, the last step on the student's end is to submit their transcript. So in this section here is where you would upload your transcript onto your application. An unofficial transcript is acceptable. Unofficial meaning that it's still a document that you're pulling from your school's information system, but getting that uploaded here, preferably if you had your most recent semester grades, that'll be great. But understanding the deadline between now and February 1st, if you're unable to get the most recent semester grades as part of your transcript, that's understandable. Just make sure you get the latest transcript you can by that February 1st deadline added to the application. Okay. After we complete all those steps, you receive a notification that looks like this that says your application has been submitted. So at that stage here, you'll get an email like that. And what's missing after a submitted application is the completion of the reference information. So when you log back into your application, you'll see and scroll to the bottom, you see, okay, we did the general application stage. We entered the reference details. We completed the application requirements, which is the transcript. Now, all we have left is has our references completed their part for a completed application. So you'll see that here on your application. You can see like this is an example here of where reference 1 and reference 2 have not started their portion yet. So you can click the resend notification option on here, and this will trigger a notification to your reference to complete. Like I said, take that step, but also reach out to them directly as well to update the information. You could come across a time where a reference for whatever reason is not responding, or you put the wrong email or something. That's okay. Send us a message through the application message center, and we'll be able to assist you in replacing an email or helping you replace a reference. After your reference complete their section, you'll then get a final email, and this is the email you want to see, which says, congratulations, your references have submitted their portion and your application is now complete. So I know we kind of quickly went through that there, but as you can see, the application is pretty straightforward. We go through the steps of the first portion, which is filling in the demographic information, answering a couple short answer questions, putting in your scores and activities. The next stage, providing the reference details and information. Stage after that, getting your transcript submitted, and then following up with your references to make sure that they complete their portion by the February 8th deadline that references have to complete. But the student still must complete their entire scholarship application by that February 1st deadline. So I'm gonna stop sharing here. Okay, so yeah, in closing with that, that's the SME Education Foundation, kind of in a quick nutshell there. Again, I want to encourage all students that have an interest pursuing a degree in areas of manufacturing or any of these technical fields that support manufacturing to look up our scholarship application, because their one application is being considered for not just one scholarship, but all available scholarships that we have just with their one application. So we have now until February 1st, so encourage you to, finish your scholarship application or encourage other students to be aware of who we are and apply to our scholarship application as well. So now we'll open the floor up for a Q&A session.
So Philip, we just received a question. For
Okay.
professional membership, does it have to be SME or just any professional clubs you are a part of?
That's a good question. So for that section, we're looking for any professional clubs, even with the extracurricular activities as well. We're looking for just how involved you are as an applicant. So if you're a member of SME, if you're a part of other societies similar to SME, that's where you want to list that information. Also, like I said, with the extracurricular activities as well, if you're a part of a STEM club, a robotics club, list that there. Maybe you play for the basketball team or other things like that. Enter that information in those sections.
So Joseph asked, oh, Joseph, a fellow Bartlett. I'm also a Bartlett. Would it be possible to rework one's application if they already submitted the first portion?
Yes, they would be able to do that. All they would have to do is just send us a message to the message center and say, "Hey, I submitted my application and I need to edit it." And as long as you're doing this before the February 1st deadline, what we'll be able to do is move your application back to in progress for you to update whatever you need to update and resubmit.
For graduate students, how far back do we go for STEM course listings? Only graduate courses or undergraduate as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. For the STEM course listings, I would list only the relevant. So as a grad student, so let's say you're a grad student, not sure how advanced you are within as a grad student, I would list all of the obviously the STEM courses that you've taken as a grad student, and maybe your senior and junior year, depending on when you started. I know I mean, we have applicants from all over. We have some that are going for PhDs and they've taken a number of graduate level STEM courses. And if you're in that situation, list all of those courses. But if you're just starting your grad program, it would be good to also include maybe some of those classes you took in your junior and senior year as well.
Do the references need to write a full-length letter of recommendation?
That's really up to the reference is in, and so it's not like a series of questions. So as a reference completing their portion, they have an option to enter the reference letter directly onto the application, or they could upload a letter. But in terms of the length of that letter, there's no limit in how long that reference letter can be.
Tom asked, I'm returning to school after a multi-year break to get a graduate degree. It may be difficult to get a recent relevant letter of recommendation from a previous professor from my bachelor's. Is it possible to submit multiple professional letters instead?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that does come up a lot. Um, Unfortunately, we do require at least one reference letter to be from a professor in order to proceed with the application. Um, my advice in that point is, sometimes it could be helpful to work with the department head or the department advisors, because sometimes those folks are also teaching faculty at the school as well, to see if that is something that can if they would be able to assist in writing a letter. So I know that is challenging, and we have students that fall into that situation. But unfortunately, at least one reference has to be from a professor instructor in order to proceed with the application.
Do students need to reapply every year?
That's a good question. Yes, the short answer is yes. For consider, so let's say if you received a scholarship, you would have to reapply each and every single year. We do have some cases where we offer renewable scholarships. So if a student is receiving a renewable scholarship, those applicants would need to also reapply. It's a much more abbreviated application. But if you receive the one-time scholarship to be considered in a subsequent year, you would need to reapply again.
Can scholarship monies be used only for tuition, books, and institutional fees?
That is correct. That's correct. Yep.
Great. And do you know about what percentage of applicants end up receiving scholarships?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. Um, I don't want to discourage anyone, but we are a national scholarship program, so we do receive interest and applications from, we get thousands of applications every single year. We make about 150 to 200 awards every single year, so you can kind of do the percentage there. Now, even though I shared that we get thousands of applications, sometimes these are people who are just finding out who we are, starting an application, and they don't complete, right? They start it and they say, oh, this is a manufacturing. So I'm not getting in manufacturing. So yeah, that's just something that don't be discouraged by that. If you have an interest in manufacturing, um, or in any of these STEM technical fields that support manufacturing, encourage you to apply to our scholarship program.
So a little bit of asking for clarification, that should they only put clubs that are related to manufacturing, or does it matter?
I would say it doesn't matter in that, but we're just looking for, obviously, those that are manufacturing or STEM focused, put them first,
Right.
but we're looking for just how well-rounded, excuse me, you are as an applicant. So some students don't have the fortunate situation where there is a STEM club or a robotics club and different things like that, but maybe they were a part of other different kinds of activities that the schools may have, and we don't want to discredit that. So we want to encourage them to list that to kind of highlight on their application.
I think, Philip, like you said, you want to see somebody who's really well-rounded, who's involved, etc. So
Exactly.
after the references complete their part, will we be able to see what they enter?
That's a good question. You would not be able to see that. So that's something that the references submit and is used as part of the application process. I'm sure if you reach out to your instructor, I wouldn't say I'm sure, but for the most part, the references that are, if you're in that situation and you want to see what they wrote, reach out to your reference, and I'm sure that they'll be happy to provide you with, just as they were happy to write the letter for you to share with you a copy of what they wrote.
I'm kind of back to the original, the Tom, I believe. Especially if you've been away, I think from your bachelor's degree, you're going to have to work really closely with them, probably to, if there are any of your professors even still around, to really outline your time at the school or in particular course or something like that. So, should applicants attempt to tailor their application for specific scholarships, or is there so much overlap between the scholarships where we need to not worry about that?
That's a good question. And I would say you wouldn't want to tailor your application for specific scholarships, but you want to tailor your application specific to who we are and what we do, right? So we're the SME Education Foundation. We're SME. So you better have an interest or awareness of the manufacturing field and an interest in that, because that's what we're looking for. And I say that with any scholarship application that you're applying to. So not just with
Mhm.
SME, if you're applying to other entities and organizations scholarship program, be aware of what they do, what they're, if it's in the foundation side, what are the efforts that they do in foundation and what they're looking to gain for giving out their scholarship awards, and then tailor your application towards that. So I wouldn't say any of our applicants should tailor anything towards a specific offering that we have. It should be tailored towards their interest in manufacturing as a whole.
I'm currently a graduate research assistant. Is this something that would be good to mention on the application?
Yeah, you could definitely list that on your application. There was a section about your employment, so I think as a research assistant, that's something that you can highlight there on the portion of your application.
Do you have any tips to help students find engineering in their community service volunteer activities? Example, I have several students who sort food donations at a local charity. They may say they only filled 22 boxes for families on their shift, but no engineering was involved.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's a good example of kind of what we talked about a few
Mhm,
moments ago here. So, um, I think that's still very important information to include on your application. You know, some students, like I said, are in a fortunate situation where maybe they didn't have a STEM or robotics or engineering club or things like that, but they've done things like great community service work, whether it be at the school or at their church or other things like that. I think it's important to highlight those things on the application. And it's all things that I would say for those sections, it think about that as ways to highlight you as an individual. You
mhm,
can say no to all of those and still proceed on your application and potentially still be considered for a scholarship. This is just better ways for the committee to look at the information that you've entered and see how that can paint a picture of you as a worthy candidate for scholarships. Don't look at it as something that is, oh, I didn't do this. Um, I'm not going to be considered.
mhm,
That's not necessarily the case. But so I would say if there's anything that you've done to that can be highlighted, notable, like those activities that you kind of shared there, make sure you mention it on your application.
mhm. Do graduate students pursuing their master's degree qualify for the scholarship?
So graduate students are eligible for scholarship consideration now, but I will be honest and share this up front that the graduate scholarship offerings are much more limited. So when you are a graduate student, we don't want to waste your time. So as you're going through the application and you indicate that you're a graduate student, there will be a pop-up window with the restrictions of as a graduate student. So you'll see that as part of the application. So it's really clear cut there. I don't remember it all of it off the top of my head, but you'll know if you'll be eligible or not, or whether to proceed in your application.
So this next question kind of, I think, falls in line with that. What do you do if you don't see your school's name on the list?
Yeah, yeah, not just necessarily, yeah, the school's name or the state or the area or whatnot. If you are a graduate student and you're in that situation, I would not encourage you to apply. Like it's unfortunate, but it's just a reality. We just don't have we have very limited offerings for graduate students that are very specific. So if you don't meet the criteria there as a graduate student, um, I would not proceed further with the application.
So this is a question that is from the standpoint of the educator who is filling out a reference. Are there any tips that you would give for them when they are filling out their reference?
Yeah. Um, I just think seeing well written uh, maybe some good examples of how that student has been a good contributor to your classroom or leadership qualities that you see there, their exceptional academic performance. Those would be all things that I would accept from a professor side of things. If you're an employer writing a reference letter for a student, just talk about that highly of their work ethic and things like that, their uh, like their willingness to learn and leadership potential and all of that stuff. So that's kind of what I would highlight from an instructor or like an employer end. So think along those lines. You're trying to um, sell and uh, give high praise to the students as best as you can. And oftentimes, that letter of recommendation is a good catch point for some of the things that the student may have highlighted that we may have missed. So we go through the application. They said that they were part of a robotics team or whatever. We may have seen that, but it could be echoed if you're a robotics advisor and you write that and highlight their experience. That's where it will stand out even more. So um, references have a big part in the application process and can only further and support that student's efforts. So hate to put more work on the references, but it's important that these students are coming to you to seek your support in scholarship, and the reviewers do look at this information in detail. So as much as you can highlight about the student, I would encourage that.
So also from an educator, how do I get my students involved in the scholarship program? I have some dual enrolled students and some traditional college students. What would the difference in involvement be?
Yeah. So again, it's what's great about our scholarship program is it's open for students that are graduating high school seniors or current college students. I would advertise our scholarship program to each of those groups, and we have different scholarship opportunities for the kind of student they are, right? So I would encourage just sharing our information, reiterating the big facts is, we award nearly $1 million every single year. We look for students that are interested in manufacturing, or in these fields that support manufacturing, encouraging them to apply, right? Because it's a good source for a scholarship resource, especially if they're interested in the field of manufacturing. So I wouldn't limit the broadcast and sharing the information. I would share to any of these students who would be interested to apply.
What about those universities that have chapters that are inactive? Could we still apply?
Yeah, of course. Um, uh, I'll say this again. So being an SME member, obviously it's great and very important, and it's a great way to kind of build your advanced manufacturing network and get connected. But for our scholarship application, it is not required to be an SME member to apply. And if you are an SME member or you're a student or is an SME member and your chapter is no longer active, you're still affiliated with inactive chapters. So on the application, we do, if you know that you're an SME student member, but you don't know your membership number or who you're affiliated with directly, there is an option, or we provide the information to reach out to the membership team via email or by phone during business hours, and a member of the SME membership team will be able to provide you with that information.
Absolutely. Is there a scholarship available for doctorate degrees?
Yeah, well, doctorate degrees fall into the graduate student realm of things. So I would say yes, but with those same caveats that are restricted geographically and institutionally that you'll see as a graduate student that's applying. You'll get that warning.
Is a Master of Engineering not eligible for scholarship? It does not appear as an option, only MS or PhD for graduate degrees.
That's a good question. I think for the specific questions like that, uh, you have my information here. Connect with me, and we can look into your unique situation a little bit more. Because like I said, on within generally speaking, we do have a master's degree as MS, and then we also have the PhD listed there. But if your program is a little different than that, let's connect and then we can look a little bit further.
Okay, great. I noticed in the application that some specific states will be considered more for a scholarship. Can you provide some clarification?
Yeah. So I'll speak to this again. This ties to the graduate piece specifically. So that is a question that's tied to that. So I guess here I'll take the general approach and then we'll get specific with graduate. Generally speaking, our scholarship's open to any student that's interested in the United States or Canada, right, pursuing a degree. When we get to the graduate scholarship specifically, as I mentioned, there is a kind of a little caveat pop up that limits to specific states and schools and areas of those states for meeting those criteria. So um, that is a limitation on the graduate school side of things. So, but you get that warning at the beginning of the application, and like I said, kind of proceed with caution. After that point, we wouldn't want you to go through every single step of the application if you don't meet those initial criteria as a graduate student.
Yes, thanks, Sherry, for adding that the language. She entered in the chat box
Oh,
the
great,
actual
great.
wording of the
Yep.
criteria. Would a high school teacher that is now retired be able to be my reference?
Uh, Potentially. Let's say potentially. Like I said, and we say this on the application, but I already stated a few different caveats or unique cases in this presentation. We prefer that the instructor, if it's a recent instructor, that'll be great, but we understand some of the challenges that students may face. So if that's the only reference that you're able to get from an instructor, I encourage you to get it because I rather, as long as it's a recent letter that's being written and it's not like we're uploading something from 10 years ago, like a old letter from years ago. As long as it's a recent document, we understand the situation. So yeah, just I would just say do your best, and if that's what you can get, then I would rather submit that than not submit it. So that would be the advice I give for that.
And just for everybody who's on the program, we did put Philip's direct email in the chat. So if you have additional questions, you can please feel free to reach out to him. What is the most common disqualifying mistake made on a scholarship application, and how can that be avoided?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say so there's a couple things. The first is our scholarship is specific for students that are residing and going to school in the US or Canada, right? So sometimes we get students that aren't residing or going to school in those areas. That's an immediate, red flag that would have a rejected application. The other one that's potentially one that would reject the application is as you're filling it out, and we're talking about your intended school next fall. We asked that question, will you be enrolled next year? And if you answer no, that could be a rejecting point in the application because all of our funding for our scholarships, like for this year, applications February 1st, but the scholarship awards won't be until the upcoming fall. So if you're saying that you're not enrolled anymore, or you're not planning on enrolling next fall, well, you wouldn't be considered for scholarships. So I would say that would be a common mistake. The other thing too, and it's hard to make this mistake because we ask very specific questions as we shared related to manufacturing. But if you don't have an interest in manufacturing, or don't make mention of it, uh, that doesn't go well with your application. I would say generally speaking there. So you got to have that interest in manufacturing and be able to answer those questions as part of the application.
Austin asks, when would we find out if we are awarded a scholarship?
Yeah, like I shared in there, students may know as soon as, so I kind of give a time period between May and June is usually when students would know if they received a scholarship or not, but it can be all the way through to July if they will know if they received a scholarship or not. So it's kind of between that window of time there. Um, uh, you can know as soon as May and June, but at the latest it would be in July if you hear if you received a scholarship or not.
Any tips on politely bugging references?
I that's a good question. I think letting them know that you used them as a reference letter, reaching out to them, maybe start with a soft communication, send them an email, say, hey, I just completed my application. If you don't hear from them and it's been, a couple, and now I know the time is tight now, so you might have to be a little bit more aggressive in each of these approaches, but maybe in a week or so, reach out to them again, see if they have office hours, stop by their office hours. You're putting them there because you have a trust in them as potentially being a reference. And they hopefully will feel the same way and be more than happy, but they could be busy. So I would encourage you to definitely reach out to your references using those mediums, email them, stop by their office, and check in on them because I'd rather you as a student know if they're going to be able to help or not because it's better to know now that my
Mhm.
reference would not be able to write one for you so you can reach out to us so we can help you update and add a different person to be a reference point. So don't feel like it is something that you're bugging them for. They're probably receiving inquiries from you and other students in the same situation. And a lot of applications have this deadline period of February, March. So they should be expecting this. So don't feel like you're bugging them. I'm not speaking for all of the instructors or whatnot, but they should be expecting this. So just reach out to them, and if you're not getting a response and you want to change your reference, reach out to us, and we can work with you on updating the reference contact to someone else.
And if we have any professors or educators who are on today, they might have some tips as well that they can share in the chat box. And I also think asking them, is there anything you can do to help them, whether it be writing out bullets or something like that, that, just helps them make that reference writing a faster position.
It's a very good
Um,
point. That's a very good point. That's helpful in your outreach and say, hey,
yeah,
I was in the class, I received great grades, you're a great
right.
instructor, blah 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 blah. All that would be helpful.
Yeah,
I would
something
agree.
to trigger them and to just whatever you can do to make it easier on them. And then Ronald, does chemical manufacturing qualify for the program? Would this include chemical operations and or maintenance as well as engineering?
That's a good question. So, like I said, what's great about the application, there is those list of majors, but if you don't see that major on there, and this definitely sounds like a manufacturing program, select other, indicate your major, and as long as you can explain how it relates to manufacturing, we want to hear from you. So, in this unique situation, that is something that I would recommend that you do is if you don't see the major on there, but it's related to manufacturing, we have an other option for you students to select and then explain how that major relates to manufacturing.
Can a faculty academic advisor be counted as your reference?
Advisors can submit letters of recommendation. Like I said, the only thing that the caveat that I make with what I shared is that at least in order for your application to just move on, like to the next step, at least one of those references you select must be a professor in order to proceed on.
Um, and let's just kind of go over, let's see. Oh, Paul said, I recommend that they send a resume as well as write a couple paragraphs about their relationship and some of the key traits that should have been displayed in their working with the faculty member. Paul, that's excellent. Yeah. Again, those are just something that might help you as the applicant, help the professor get their job. Only graduate students who meet at least one of the following criteria are eligible.
Yeah, I see that message. Yep, that's the that is not a question that's on there. That is the pop-up that you get as a graduate student. So yeah, I'll be happy to read it here. So as if you're a graduate student, you're applying to the scholarship program. Only graduate students who meet at least one of the following criteria are eligible for graduate scholarship consideration, attending a college or university in the following states: Connecticut, Kansas, Indiana, Missouri, Michigan, or currently residing in those states: Connecticut, Kansas, Indiana, Michigan, or Missouri will be considered for scholarship. So again, reading that out loud to you, but as a graduate student, you will see that pop up, and you must meet those criteria in order to be considered for any graduate scholarships.
And we'll take about one more question or two. So feel free, anybody else in the chat box to feel free to submit a question. And just to kind of go over if any of our attendees are past applicants or past scholarship recipients. So past applicants who have not received a scholarship, can they reapply?
Yeah. If you're a past applicant and you didn't receive a scholarship, encourage you to reapply, and hopefully you could take away some of the tips and advice that we shared at today's presentation to help enhance your application and kind of get an idea of what we're looking for. So, if you didn't, that's a great point. If you didn't receive a scholarship in the past, and you applied, I encourage you to apply again, especially if you're interested in this field. If you received a scholarship in the past, I encourage you to apply again if you're continuing your educational studies, and we'll be considering your application for consideration again. So, students in both those situations, encourage them to apply.
And Philip, you may have answered this already, but if you have been a previous applicant or scholarship recipient, if you go to apply again, Does the system recognize you, and so
Yeah.
you're not necessarily filling out every single bit of information again?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, for the most part, when you're using the same login information that you used in the past, so a lot of that stuff will be already put into your application. So unless you change schools or change your majors and other things like that, be mindful of it. Still take the
Mhm.
time to look through everything like that. So, yeah, that's something that you could do. Just reuse the same application login, and actually, I encourage that.
Yeah, great. And that's good for anybody who's maybe applying for the first time this year and considers it for next year. For those that came in late, is a webinar replay going to be sent out? Yes, there will be a replay. Okay, so thank you, Philip, again for joining us today and sharing this amazing opportunity for everybody who was with us. And thank you for all of you who joined us today. Please fill out a brief survey, event survey, and share your feedback with us. This helps us make sure that we are providing valuable content to you. And don't hesitate to register for our upcoming SME membership programs. And if you're not an SME member yet, we highly encourage you to join today. We hope everybody had a great time, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks again, Philip.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And if anyone have any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to help. And the application deadline is right around the corner. So looking forward to your application. Take care, everyone.